My name is Anastasia. I came from Moscow, Russia.
My name is Jonathan. I'm from the United States.
My name is Margarita and I'm from Croatia.
My name is Jessica and I'm from India.
I'm Enrique from Mexico.
I am Juliana. I come from Brazil.
Actually, for me, it's the first international experience. That's why everything was very, very new for me. Probably the first shock that I experienced was that everything is closed so early. You can't find a shop which will work after 10 p.m. in the evening, and streets are very, very quiet. And first it was really shocking for me, but then actually I decided that it's very good, because in Moscow it's huge noise pollution, light pollution. Every time 3 a.m. you will hear music, open bars everywhere. So it was shocking in the beginning, but in the end it's really, really nice.
Well, you clearly don't live in my building. There's always music playing. One of the biggest things I noticed over here, there is a lot to say about sarcasm when it comes to Dutch culture. I remember we were driving in a car and we had hit like a construction site in the road, and the security guy came over and said, "Do you want to pass?" And we're like, "Yes, please." And he was like, "Well, that'll be 300 euros. And then we're sitting there going like, and he's like, "Oh no, it was just a joke." so I guess the jokes kind of they differ a little bit, because usually in the States you have it with like a smile, but yeah, here I think he never used sarcasm again after that. But yeah, that's the first thing I noticed.
Well, I think the biggest cultural shock was seeing how relaxed people here are. So yeah, I believe that people here have more less worries, and they seem to, even in university, Dutch students don't worry as much as internationals, and I think that's one great message we can get from Dutch culture, that everything's going to be fine even if you relax and don't worry as much.
So I come from a country where we drive on the left side of the road and not the right side, as everyone else here believes. So it was quite a shock for me to orient myself the right way, and also make sure where you are walking, it should be on the footpath, not on the bike lane, because even though Dutch people are very polite and pleasant, on the bike lane they get a free aggression pass and will hurl out names of diseases just to show how much they how angry they are towards you. So that is something you need to be okay with, and just know that verbally inflicting diseases on you isn't going to give your family smallpox or rabies. So
I don't have a similar story, but something that struck me as different was a kind of bike that has a big box in front of it. I think it's called fietsbak, something like that. Back feet, precisely. And the other day I saw a man riding this back feet with like 3 children inside of the box, and at the same time taking his big dog on a leash. And I thought that was so Dutch and something so impressive and interesting and different from my culture.
Yeah, the most shocking for me was the directness of the Dutch people. So, well, in Mexico we tend to tell the whole story and to go in circles just to say one thing, like, "I like you," or something. But here is, okay, no, I like you, let's have a beer or something. And yeah, then I learned it was because of efficiency. So they value time a lot. So I think you learn from that. So first it was shocking, like, yeah, how am I going to adapt to this, to be fast and to not tell my stories, because I love my stories. But no, then you learn that, well, it's better even for studies, for work, for your life. And yeah, that was it.
Most students expect, or rather hope, that after taking care of administrative, academic, financial, and immigration-related matters, they can simply ease into following education at the university of their choice. What some do not expect is that there is another aspect to studying abroad, and that is culture shock. You might be affected by this in some degree, if not on a cultural or social, then certainly on an academic level. The W curve is a predictable pattern of stages that occurs when a person experiences culture shock and is based upon research done with students studying abroad. We hope that by sharing this information with you, it will help to make the transition to another cultural and academic environment easier. The W curve consists of several phases. The first is the honeymoon phase, which starts before students first arrive on campus. It usually begins once a student has been accepted to a university and builds as students attend orientation programs, settle into their student dorms, and begin planning for classes to start. The overall feeling is generally one of excitement and positive anticipation. The second phase is often the feeling of frustration, as differences become apparent and irritating, and it can take quite some time to adjust to new ways of communicating and new cultural structures. This may even be the cause of feelings of homesickness and depression. After a while, though, you develop strategies to cope with these difficulties and to adapt to the host culture as you accept and possibly even embrace cultural differences and make the new culture your own. This is the acceptance phase, which may lead you into a reverse culture shock when you go back home, having again to adapt to life in your home country after the end of your studies. After hearing about how cultural differences may impact you, you may be curious about the main characteristics of Dutch culture. Now that you have arrived to the Netherlands, you have probably noticed some apparent and visible elements of culture, which are, for example, the Dutch language, the use of the sound, the eating habits, such as the famous croquettes from the wall, greeting customs, which in most informal cases is done by giving 3 kisses on the cheek, and the many bikes on the street. The less visible elements, however, are just as significant. To give you a head start, we've put together a top 3 of Dutch elements of culture, the first being Dutch directness and a very cut-to-the-chase type of attitude. The Dutch are known for being one of the most low-context cultures in the world. Speech is almost always straightforward and context-driven. Some may be pleasantly surprised by this, while others can be taken aback by the sometimes blunt and outspoken opinions of the Dutch. The second is the fact that the Netherlands is known for being one of the most non-hierarchical, egalitarian societies in the world. Examples of this is that the Prime Minister regularly takes a bike to go to work, and most people, even those in higher positions, are addressed in a rather informal manner. Don't be surprised if most Dutch students call their lecturers by their first name, or if communication tends to be rather informal. Finally, it's worth mentioning that decisions are often made in a consensual manner in groups and through unanimous agreement, and you will also notice this when working with other students in work groups. And finally, the Dutch tend to live lives by their agendas. They refer to all kinds of events as appointments for which a strict planning is kept. Most agendas are booked up weeks in advance, which might strike spontaneous people as odd, but it keeps Dutch society ticking. It certainly explains why Dutch people are rarely late for appointments, so you are advised to pay the same attention when it comes to timekeeping, both in social scenarios as well as in an academic environment. There are, of course, far more cultural characteristics than just these 3 when describing Dutch national culture. It is also worth mentioning that cultural elements translate to the academic environment, which may be challenging when adapting to interactions in a Dutch classroom. For many foreign students who have come to the Netherlands and Vrije Universiteit Amsterdam to study, one of the major culture shocks is caused by the grading culture and system. This system differs substantially from that in quite a few other countries. In the Netherlands, the traditional grading scale is from 1 to 10, where 1 is the lowest and 10 is the highest grade. The pass mark for a single subject is 6. Grades 1 through 4 are very rarely given, and the same is true for grades 9 and 10. The most common grades in both secondary and higher education are 6 and 7. This may come as quite a shock for students from countries where the highest possible grade is awarded often as encouragement for students or reward for their effort. In addition, grading is absolute rather than relative. This means that students are not graded one against another. The lecturer sets a minimum score for a pass, and based on this minimum, it is possible for all students to pass or only a few. Now, let's talk grade distribution. The distribution of grades in higher education is as follows. Grades 1 to a 5.4, which is a fail, are given in 11% of the cases. A 5.5 to a 6.4, which is a pass, in 30% of the cases. 6.5 to a 7.4, which is good, 30% of all cases. A 7.5 to an 8.4, which is considered very good, 23% of all cases. 8.5 to a 9.4, which is considered excellent in 5% of the cases. And finally, a 9.5 to a 10 in only 1%. These percentages are very much in line with the Dutch saying that an 8 is for the student, a 9 is for the professor, and a 10 is for God. Students are encouraged to develop an independent and critical way of thinking and to draw their own conclusions in their academic work. This is in contrast to other cultures where students have to master existing knowledge before their own opinion is appreciated. If this is the case in your country, writing a paper may be a big challenge for you, because collecting and summarizing information from other authors will not be sufficient. You will have to make your own selection of available information sources, develop your own line of thinking, and include your own conclusions or recommendations. If you refer to findings made by others, you will have to state very clear references to authors, article, or books, for if you don't, you might be accused of plagiarism. This is a serious matter for which you will have to answer to the examination board. The same applies to the use of graphics and illustrations. If you do not use your own materials without quoting the source, you may receive a fine up to hundreds and in some cases thousands of euros. Rules and regulations on how to refer to findings made by other scholars can be found in the examination board guidelines of your respective faculty. And finally, it is very important that your academic work does not contain any personal information, such as names or email addresses of others. This also applies to information which may be enough to identify a person. For example, student X residing in Amsterdam who's in a wheelchair and studies Japanese. In short, the kind of information that can be traced down to another person. In addition to fines, not adhering to these rules can lead to failing the class and having to start again, after which your work will be scrutinized even more. The good news, however, is that professors are generally very approachable, and so if you have questions about how to include references in your academic work, they are more than willing to assist you. In addition, the library offers workshops on how to correctly include references in your academic work, so make sure to check their website for the upcoming workshop dates. At Vrije Amsterdam, we have set up the mixed classroom educational model, capitalizing on different cultural perspectives in an educational setting. We have invited Jonathan Leipold to tell you a thing or two about his teaching experience in the intercultural academic environment.
So the VU aims to provide an open environment to students with backgrounds that vary on many different dimensions. For example, religion, gender, ethnicity, and nationality. Our classrooms are therefore diverse and international. In the Mixed Classroom project or Mixed Classroom model, we believe that learning outcomes can benefit from building upon diversity that is present in the classroom, on whatever dimension I've just mentioned. In the Mixed Classroom model, we use an educational approach that builds upon these differences to enrich the learning experience of all our students. Students learn to open up to differences, to create and collaborate in an inclusive environment, and to capitalize on different perspectives in order to create value. So by capitalizing on these differences, we stimulate critical thinking, problem-solving skills, creative solutions, and the literature has shown that this process leads to superior performance. Well, to start, over the past years I have realized that the mixed classroom is much more than speaking English. There are many implicit expectations that need to be more explicit, and I wanted tools to ensure that everyone feels included in my classroom. But therefore, I followed the mixed classroom training and became an ambassador for the project. As a teacher, I have learned to become more aware of my implicit biases, which refers to thoughts and feelings that we are unaware of, but do affect our behavior. So an example is how I act if someone, in my opinion, is not participating in my classroom. The automatic thought might be that this person is not motivated and therefore does not get attention. However, that is bias, because how can I be sure? So So in my opinion, the benefit of a mixed classroom is that it makes it possible to highlight different perspectives and to actively work with these perspectives. By doing this, we prepare you for an even better professional, because when you graduate and start working in your field, you will need to function and flourish in diverse group settings, in an international project team, an interdisciplinary research group, or any other setting where different perspectives have a seat at the table. By adhering to principles of the mixed classroom, we actively prepare you as a future professional, and our diverse university campus offers unique opportunities for learning in this respect.
Yeah, compared to my home country, I would say that here we have a lot more exchange of ideas during the classes. There's a more intense exchange of ideas between professors and students, and most professors will encourage us to actively engage in the discussions of the topics they introduce, and they will expect that the students will be very critical about it. So yeah, I think knowledge here is more built together than just presented to students. And this is a really dynamic and interesting process.
So where I'm from in India, there is a very systematic way to approach a professor. There is a hierarchy and there is a certain amount of respect, and you need to be very respectful in when you approach a professor or want to counter an idea that he has shared. And over here, that was very different for me, where, again, like she mentioned, we have way more open interactions with our professors, and they are far more approachable. And another thing that really struck me here was the borals that we get to have with our fellow students and with the professors, and that really helps you ease out the tension that you may have. And
the grading system, I would say it's pretty similar, to be honest. The way of teaching is very different, because here you enjoy a lot of freedom. You can say whatever you are thinking and whatever you are believing. And back in my country, you can't. You feel this barrier that you can't talk about religion openly. You can talk about your spirituality. You can talk about your essence. And here you can. So that's the main difference, I think.
Well, I think the Dutch universities have very open relationships between students and professors, and that is different to my home country. I believe that's different with most of the countries. I think that's very nice, because sometimes you are encouraged a lot to say your opinion and your suggestions. And as far as Dutch students, I think I wouldn't call them unapproachable. I think they are approachable, but maybe I would say it's hard to make a connection on a personal level as friends. And that can be a challenge, but I always encourage people to as well as myself, to just approach and ask someone for a coffee or anything, even though they don't seem that they want to, but it's not the case. It's just a cultural difference. So that's something I find really maybe challenging in this year.
Society is very chill in general, and when I studied here, I didn't experience pressure at all, because everyone is so approachable and so relaxable that you don't feel this terrible pressure that I experienced in Russia. And also, there is no competition between students. It's not used to ask people, oh, what grade did you get? No one do it, which I really, really enjoy. So you can focus on yourself and on your study and don't worry about other people's success, because it's only you what matters. And also, surprisingly, on my program, I almost don't have exams, It's just group assignments and essays, and you understand that your opinion is actually what's really matter, not some theory or textbook readings. The most important part of your study is to try to put something new in already existed approaches, and that's what I really enjoy about studying in Netherlands.
You know, I agree with that. I did notice that there is a competition kind of factor in the United States, and here it's very much about building upon yourself, and everyone has their own kind of pace that they go at. So that's also something that is vastly different from what I've experienced.
The tip that I think I can provide is maybe not only focus on your study, try to explore the world around you, try to communicate with as much people as you want, and don't really focus just on study, have some fun, and because it's experience of studying abroad, it's something more than just study and always sitting and reading. It's about communication and building your new network, which I guess is the best opportunity that you can get in your life.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, absolutely.
I noticed that when I came over here from the United States, one of the things that I found most important for integrating into a new culture as well as a new continent is having an open mind. There's a lot of different experiences that you'll come across, and people have different societies that they come from, and to understand that you have to kind of get rid of that, you know, my culture is right, this is how the way things should be, and to be able to understand where they're coming from and their journey. I think that's essential to not only communicating, but as well as bonding with your fellow classmates and making friends over here in the Netherlands.
Yes, I think at VU there is the best opportunity to even develop an open mind, even if you didn't come from that kind of background, let's say, because of so many different nationalities that you're going to meet in your class, and big opportunities of understanding other cultures and their point of view. And also to develop yourself personally, to grow as a person and career-wise. Another advice I would give to new students is that you shouldn't compare yourself to others, because every person here is on their own journey. And if something is a success to you, that's the only thing that is important, because everyone has their challenges.
My main tip for the new international students would be to prepare and study before the classes, if you have the time, because here the professors, as Enrique said, will expect this engagement during discussions, and the pace of the classes is also really fast, at least for me, comparing to my experience in Brazil.
I would say just be yourself. And if you don't know who you are, this is the moment to discover who you are. It's the best environment to discover yourself. And then just believe that. So yeah, I would say that.
The only person that, again, you are competing with is yourself. And at the end of the day, you really need to be reliable. And over here, people respect honesty and directness, and that is something that was really new to me. So I had to start being honest with myself when it came to deadlines and stuff. And apart from that, again, I understood independence on a whole new level here. You know, even though you can stay up for as long as you like or go to bed whenever you want, you've really got to learn to lean on yourself when it comes to cooking or cleaning and adjusting with so many other people that you might be living with, and you know, just respecting other people's cultural preferences and boundaries. Also, just don't be offended if the Dutch food isn't as robust and lavish as any other country in the world. You will get used to the cheese and the bread And yeah, just if you can, pack your own spice boxes. I did not do that the first time, but the second time, 10 kgs of my weight was just in spices, and yeah.
Say inspiring.
That was my word. No, I need a moment as well now. Are you also thinking?
I had one. Self-discovery. Is that one word?
Self-discovery, yeah.
Yeah, with a dash.
I'd say for me it's been really enlightening. Not in a spiritual way, but in a very practical, direct Dutch way. So, yeah.
I would say exploring.
Growth.
I would say embracing.